Hey, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark here, host of Minds of the Mighty podcast. And this isn't just your ordinary podcast. This is where we get real with Olympians, pro athletes, celebrities, and other amazing high achievers who've all conquered their fears and challenges and come out successful on the other side. So every week, you're going to get unforgettable conversations. You're going to get information on how to move things forward and powerful validation for you building your own dreams. So hit that subscribe button, spread the love, and let's go. Hey everyone, Danielle Fitzpatrick Clark here, your host of Minds of the Mighty podcast. And oh my goodness, I am so excited to introduce you guys to today's guest, which is Sheila Houlahan. I was afraid I was going to mess up your last name. Sheila Houlahan, and she is so amazing. She's a South Asian actress, executive producer, writer, and activist. Best known for her Webby and Anthem award-winning film Night Mother and acting opposite of the incredible Denzel Washington. We were talking about him a little bit beforehand in The Little Things. She is dedicated to using her platform to uplift marginalized voices through powerful storytelling. So welcome, Sheila. Oh my gosh, it's so great to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. It's so nice to be here. Thank you for that very warm intro. My goodness.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Yes, and we really appreciate you coming on because you are pretty close to a big day coming up.
It's in 10 days. My God. Yep. Feeling that.
Yes. So guys, just for your awareness, Sheila is getting married. She's getting married in 10 days to her wonderful fiance who's watching the dog in the garage right now.
Yeah. You can probably hear his little workout playlist if you listen very carefully.
Nice.
Streaming through.
Oh my goodness. Well, you don't have to tell us like too many details, but how excited are you?
I'm so excited. I'm at that point, like, I feel for anybody who's listening who's gotten married before, like, you will be very familiar with like the weird emotional roller coaster that is planning a wedding. Yeah. So I'm at that point of like, great, let's do it. Ready, done, time, let's begin. Yep. Please, yesterday. So I'm just thrilled. I haven't gotten cold feet once in the entire process. Like, I know I want to marry him. We've been together for close to a decade, and he is absolutely my soulmate and the one I'm supposed to be with. But the planning of the wedding itself is a interesting phenomenon. Very not dissimilar to planning and executing a film, honestly. Yeah. Horrifyingly similar in a lot of ways.
Oh, okay. So do tell. Now I got to know.
I mean, just finding the right team of people, starting with your vision, coordinating with different consultants, finding different subject matter experts. So, if you're going to need catering for both, right? Like, there's a lot of overlap there. There's a lot of people who work in both industries. Yeah. So I would say anything that you're bringing into existence, whether it be a narrative piece or something just like a wedding, you are working on creating a vision that starts as something intangible and slowly becomes something tangible and real that is going to be an experience that people come away from. Yeah. So keeping that, okay, how do I want people to feel when they're at the wedding and attending it is very similar to what I think when I think, okay, how do I want people to feel when they're viewing this film? When I'm reviewing a script and saying, okay, is this something that I want to take on? How do I see this being received? Where do I see this going? How can we add value to it? Certainly my approach with scripts is how do we add value off the page or off the screen? Yeah. And I'm really interested in creative projects that also are simultaneously nonprofit-based movements so that if people feel inspired after watching a film, they can go and immediately take action. Because I think that's just how people are wired these days. So trying to do the same with my wedding, like working with a florist who uses recycled flowers so that I'm not, growing a carbon footprint and doing other little practices like that to try to live by those values, even when it's just a big party.
Yeah, I know. Because we talked about that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like really excited because our wedding, me and my husband's wedding, it was a big party in my backyard with hay bales and then You know,
That's
the
so nice.
neighbors were the country band and all that stuff. Oh yeah. Mm.
I love
Funny,
that.
funny story about this. I actually, because we had cakes. I did my first cake stand at my wedding. They had pictures.
That's so cool.
I know
Wow.
everyone's like,
The
"Wait,
coolest bride.
is that the bride? Oh my gosh, she's doing a cake stand!" And I actually beat out all the guys. And I'm like, "I told you guys I was gonna win, but like, yeah, but you can't drink anymore tonight."
Irish. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's in the blood. It's in the DNA.
Like, oh, I've never done one of those. I'm like, well, why not? You know, it's my day, so I might as well just,
Let's do it. Today is as good a day as any. That's so funny. Wow.
Yep.
You're a legend. I love it.
Yeah, we have side by we have pictures of my husband doing stands in his tuxedo, and then me. I wasn't in my wedding dress. I don't think they could have lifted it up, but I was in like the after dress, and so
Sure.
they have him lifting me up, and I couldn't lift him up. He's a big dude,
Sure.
so his fraternity brothers and my brother actually, because they were roommates. Yeah, there's a whole story behind that. That was fun. That was fun. They were holding him up, and so yeah, but I still won. I won. I beat out like 3 or 4 other guys. Yep.
Wow. I hope that you have those photos framed side by side in your home.
We do, but they're put away right now, so our girls don't see them. Like, what is
Right.
that
Be like,
mommy's doing?
when you're older, we'll put that up again and be like,
Yeah.
an example. I love that. That's so funny.
Like, I knew that you were cool, Mom. I knew it was there somewhere.
Yeah, but that's like the kind of unbridled authenticity that I feel like we need more of in this world.
Yeah.
Obviously, like wait till the kids are older, but that I love that energy. I wish people led with more of that online, certainly.
Yeah.
Because that's what's relatable ultimately, right? The very specific, like, wow, that's a really random and cool thing that you did is ultimately what makes me feel on this Zoom call or in any other sort of platform feel more connected to you.
Yeah. Well, that gives me permission to like put those. Sorry, I got my hair on my face. Put that out there on like, hey, yeah, on LinkedIn. If I can get away with it on LinkedIn, I can get away with it anywhere. So,
oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
And I'll
LinkedIn poll.
I'm gonna have to pull them. Okay, so aging myself just a little bit here. I'm gonna have to scan them into the computer because
wow,
they're not digital.
there is an app called Genius Scan, and no, I am not sponsored by them. I just love them.
Yeah.
And it's a phone scanner. So you just take a picture on your phone and it instantly scans it and turns it into a scanned PDF file for you.
Then I guess I have no excuse not to put it up.
Yeah, let me make your life easier.
No, I mean, I don't mind putting stuff like that up. And, I probably have a couple coaches like, Danielle, you shouldn't do that. But it's like, well, you know what? I think that people should, if they don't like it, fine. Honestly, I'm always looking to get rid of people who don't resonate anyway. So
yeah,
it's just permission.
That really should be the goal anyways. It's just like, what can I share that is unapologetically myself online that is actually going to lose people rather than gain more? I think when people think about it from that end, they find that really specific niche, right?
Yeah.
And they start to figure out what their voice is. And then people are like, oh, there you are. I've been looking for you. Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, I love that. Well, it sounds like you guys do that in the movies too. It really is about resonating with people who resonate with you, even in movie scripts and producing that. So, and I love that the storytelling piece. So, can we dig into that a little bit? I find that fascinating.
For sure, we can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So storytelling. When did you start storytelling? When's a good memory, like a first or maybe the second or third most significant?
I love that you specifically led with storytelling because I believe that I, like most people on the planet, started leading with storytelling at like babyhood, right? I think that storytelling is one of those things that actually separates man from beast. I think that storytelling is the earliest, simplest type of creative act that we began engaging in however many thousand years ago. Yeah. So I've always been drawn to story. I wasn't consciously aware that I was a story fiend until I was an adult. But certainly growing up, I was enmeshed with story. I would lose myself in story. I just remember being a little kid at recess and other kids were playing and I would just be alone in the corner, like just pacing and thinking about a story. and being like, oh, what if it went in this direction? And oh, what blah, 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 blah. So I've always been really geeky when it comes to story and the process of story and what story is, what is it about, and how it, again, like really influences people outside of interacting with the story. Yeah. You know, you can watch a movie and come away from it, and that movie can really deeply influence your character and your sense of self. Yeah. Even down to small habits that we walk around with as adults that we don't realize we actually got from media that we consumed when we were like 8 or 9, right? Yeah. It's fascinating to me how story really is the vehicle that we use as a collective to have any sort of lingering tribal relations, for lack of a better term, you know, since like sort of tribal culture and village culture isn't really a thing in the West anymore. Yeah. Media and story are our way of actually organically connecting with each other. So I love story. I think it's really interesting. I think it is the way that people can safely experience things that they otherwise don't feel safe enough to engage with in their day-to-day life. Yeah. So, you know, if you look at any genre, right? Yeah. Whether it be comedy, whether it be sci-fi fantasy, whether it be horror, they're all the same vehicle to explore that which we've made taboo in our own lives. Yeah. Whether it be horror, which is literally exploring the taboo, or a comedy, a sitcom, right? Where they're exploring some heavy topics, but with the button of everything is going to be all right at the end of this. The people here are safe. You know, it's play pretend. You know, everybody is safe. Everybody is all right. Therefore, let's step into this make-believe world where we can really explore the nitty-gritty of sort of human condition, for lack of a better term. Oh. So, very long tangent answer to your question of why I find story so interesting.
No, I'm glad we went there. Actually, I'm like really glad we went there because when you go into it that much, you're very passionate about it. Okay, so I have to ask this question now that we were talking about storytelling. And again, you may have a couple different ones, but what was a significant story that really shaped your passion for storytelling?
Ooh, wow. Okay. Really interesting question. Especially, I think, with the age implication there, because I think I'm constantly inspired by new story each period, if you will. In terms of early stories, that's hard. It's been a minute since I've taken about stories. But really, let's see, what's one that like immediately jumps out? So I actually got my start in entertainment in classical music and opera, which is a weird way to segue into film and TV, but that is how I started. Yeah. And I'm glad I started because opera draws from a lot of mythology cross-culturally. So whether it be Greek mythology or Chinese mythology or what have you, there's a lot of big overarching myths and legends that are the basis for their stories. Yeah. So, you know, I fell deeply in love at a young age with Puccini, and he exists in what would I call his genre? I would say the closest thing to his genre would be fantastic realism, which is where you take a story that almost seems normal, but has one or two extraordinary circumstances that just up the stakes for everybody involved. Yeah. So that was something that really stuck with me of, okay, here's the backstory, here's the setting, here's where we are. But in the middle of all of it, there's this very real, very relatable pain, an essential sort of part of the human condition that is being explored that baby Sheila got really attracted to. Yeah. So I started learning at a young age through that about archetypes and about, okay, what is the through line between every story on the planet? Yeah. What is it that every compelling story has that a less compelling story doesn't? And I am realizing all of this as I'm talking out loud, for the record. This is definitely not something I walk around with in my head. I mean, that really is it. Is I think on a subconscious level, I started thinking about what stories I was attracted to. And then later on in adulthood, I started applying that to sort of more traditional media and being like, oh, wait, if I'm going to work in TV and film, that means, I can actually think about this as more than just like a snack entertainment, but instead thinking about constructively, what am I consuming? Why does it affect me in this way? Yeah. And now, in answer to your question, really the stuff that comes up for me is recent story-based media that I engaged with that's different, that pushed the envelope, that, you know, it may be something where I can't get it out of my head for 4 or 5 months, and I'm just thinking about, God, that creator is so brilliant, that's amazing. And how story is changing and going in a bunch of different directions. There's one, let's see, in terms of recent stories. So there's this one piece, and it's hard to even really bring it up because the work itself is not done. The creator said that they're about halfway through the prologue, but I'm really gripped by the Welcome Home project. I think it's a really fascinating way to approach narrative in its sort of multimedia, found archival footage sort of state, where they're really letting the audience discover along in tandem with the creator. And that project has gone insanely viral because of it. But it's not the fact that it's viral that is appealing to me. It's that you can see the years of work that the creator did behind the scenes before they started releasing tiny pieces to the public. Yeah. So it's cool to like see where story came from over the past, you know, couple thousand years, and then how we're using the lens of technology to sort of push the envelope and how we tell those stories today.
Okay. I love this. Okay. So compelling story versus, I'm just going to say, a boring story. So what is that commonality? What's the byline for a compelling?
I would say specific relatability. I think a story is boring when there isn't enough rich detail and world building, for lack thereof. Yeah. I am going to make a generalized statement that I think will probably garner me some enemies, and that's okay. I find that a lot of like advertisement-based stories aren't interesting in this day and age unless they take a very specific viewpoint, which I don't often see. I see, you know, commercial agencies or companies themselves saying, okay, we want our product to be appealing to the most amount of people possible, which actually alienates more people. If they take a very specific viewpoint of how they want that story to be presented, that the product is a character in, I think we'll find it more relatable. And that's not, I don't know. I feel like I see a lot of ads these days trying to be cheeky and trying to become a meme rather than actually having something specific they want to say. Yeah. And I find that the ones that specifically state something and have that viewpoint, regardless of how that viewpoint is going to necessarily be perceived, and like, let alone how the product is going to be perceived, are the ones that do the best.
Yeah. So with digital marketing, one of the things that I really hit home with everybody is like, it's not about the product. It's about the people. It always is about the people. And you know, especially how busy online is now with all the advertisements, is that you have to stop the scroll. How are you going to do that? And so resonance is actually one of those big ones. Is that when people can insert themselves into a situation, into an advertisement, or into a product or a story that somebody is telling online, that connects with them in a way that nothing else can, and it stops the scroll. But it not only stops the scroll, it makes whatever you wrote or whatever you advertised or the product memorable to them. So it's so interesting that you're talking about that too when it comes to storytelling. And I actually think that a lot of the best digital marketing pieces that do really well have that baseline of storytelling.
Yes, I completely agree. Wow. No, you just made me think of a lot of things. So personally, as a person on social media, I've stopped taking commission-based work from product. I just, at this point, if I'm going to talk about a product, it's because it's something that I like to use, and I did not get paid to talk about it, because I have found in my own engagement that the worst engagement that I get is when someone has paid me to talk about their product. The best engagement that I get is when I'm not even trying. I make a post that might literally just be text, and it's all of a sudden like 4 times the engagement as per usual. And that gives me something, right? Like, people are tired of seeing curated shit. They want to see stuff that is real, that resonates, as you say.
Yeah, yes, influencer marketing is changing so much now. And so at the beginning of 2023, there was the big de-influencing. And so what that was is, and I actually liked how it started, because influencers who were listening to the ones that kind of started de-influencing, they were listening to their audience, and their audience is saying, well, how do I know that's the best? Because you just got paid to post this. So they were saying those things. And so this is when de-influencing those influencers would take another, well, let me just show you that I'm a product of the product, and this is why I love it compared to this one. So they would de-influence the other brand, which I don't know the legalities around it. Definitely wouldn't recommend it without looking into it. But it was in a way to show their following that actually I'm a product of the product and I love it and this is why. At least the people that were being genuine about it. Not everybody was genuine about it. Then people saw that, ooh, look, that got them a ton of likes and subscribers. I guess I will do. And so then,
And then it turns into an imitation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it turns into legal issues and then it turns into the brand, oh gosh, we were one of those brands that, this influencer cut us down. And, to which I say, I'm like, well, there's your feedback, brands. That's your feedback.
I mean, that's honest feedback that is valuable.
Yeah.
If it's listened to. That's interesting that I wasn't aware of that trend actually. So that's interesting that happened. I still see, I won't name her, but there's one pretty large influencer that I follow who made this post that was so tone deaf in comparison to sort of the ethos of what her website is. And she just got reamed by her fans and everyone was like, this is so embarrassing. Like, I'm embarrassed for you that you promoted this company because it goes against everything you stand for. But obviously she got paid a lot because it's still up there. She never took it down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it was just this weird, like, wow, you just eroded years of trust in your brand overnight for a quick buck. And I think I get it. A lot of people make a livable income doing this, and I don't want to smack talk those people because that's their choice and that's a valid way to earn money. Personally, I'm not taking those commissions anymore. I will talk about a product if I actually genuinely like it.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's going to get you more followers too, because people are looking for, the real, the opinions, like why do I need to use this? And if you're saying, well, this is why I use it, this is why I like it, maybe you'll like it too. Word of mouth marketing is still the best form of marketing. And yes, I say that being a digital marketer, knowing that, is that going to take me out of business? No, it's not, because the platform is the platform is digital. So it's just kind of a way to use the platforms we have available to us. And the old form of marketing still stands, word of mouth marketing. Here's the thing that's changed though, is that because influencers and, actresses, just as yourself, and musicians are in the public eye, there's another layer to it where you guys are going to do better if it's genuine. It just because people are watching, and if they've watched one, they probably watched multiple ones. So it's all really fascinating. It's all like a nice little human experiment that we've got going on here.
Yeah, it is actually. That's a nice way to think about it. A human
if we all think about it as an experiment, then we can say, okay, so that was a lesson and I learned from it. And this always goes back to like brands and even influencers and like, what'd you learn? What'd you take?
It lowers the stakes. It makes it less of a like, this is ruined society, and makes it more just like, whoops, we shouldn't have done that.
Like you go so much further when you're just really honest about it. And so I have had brands approach me like, what should we do about this? I'm like, well, what is it that is the truth? What's the truth? Yeah. And so they say the truth. I'm like, okay, so what's the pink elephant then? What's the pink elephant? And they'll tell me the pink elephant. I'm like, okay, so bring that out into the middle of the room and talk about it. That's what people want. They want the real, and the ones that don't want it. I mean, do you really want them to be your ICP, your ideal client profile anyway? So, because that's not how brands are lasting. They're not lasting with the fake anymore. It's just because we're changing. We're changing as human beings, and what we're willing to pay attention to and what we're not. I mean, there's enough fake, and then we put the added layer of AI on it. It's just,
oh my God, that's going to get so strange in a way that is kind of exciting.
It's exciting, and it's also, and I know people are like, it's kind of scary. I'm like, we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think once we have an idea of how regulation around it is going to look, I'm excited about the possibility of what it can do for the average low budget creator. That's exciting. About what voices it's going to be able to unlock. That's exciting.
Yeah. I think if we can look at it as like, this is going to support, this is going to help us be more efficient, this is going to help us, improve things, and then I think that there's going to be a lot of support for that piece of it. So Okay, so I wanted to get us going a little bit, but I do have to ask because I got to ask beforehand, but now I'm like, okay, my crowd probably really wants to know what was it like? I know we're shifting here. What was it like to work with Denzel Washington?
Amazing.
Yeah,
He is, I mean, on the subject of authenticity, he is very much himself. And I think that's what really differentiates just another actor from a legend.
yeah,
Um, is he's so grounded in every deep layer of himself. That alignment is just rock solid, top to
yeah,
bottom. It was life changing. I mean, I really felt like I was getting paid to basically just be taught from a master, which was awesome,
yeah,
as I am a self professed nerd and love to learn.
yeah,
But just his generosity of spirit, his quiet, creative, collaborative spirit of like, he wants to make sure that a choice feels aligned with the group vision before he enacts on it. And
yeah,
so if he has to go step aside and meditate on something before coming back with ideas, with
yeah,
a, hey, let's have a conversation about this and let's find a solution to this problem,
yeah,
rather than, leading with ego. And it was, I wish more people operated like him. And I think I wish how he comports himself on set was more widely publicized, because that's the kind of role model that we need right now.
yeah,
Speaking as a producer as well, taking off actor hat, putting on producer hat, I see too many actors leading with self-promotion and me, 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 me. And that really turns me off as a creative, because
yeah,
that tells me exactly how they're going to be like to work with for 10 or 12-hour days every day.
yeah,
In a creative environment where we have a really finite amount of time to execute a vision.
yeah,
And if it's going to turn into me, 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 then we're probably going to get behind. It's going to cost us more money and we're weaker for it, because it really just takes one little chink in the armor for the whole thing to start to collapse around that little gap.
yeah.
So I wish that, I know that his spirit did sort of come forward after the like Will Smith, Chris Rock debacle. um, that like strangely put Denzel in the limelight again, of just his ethos as a human being. But everything that you think he is and more. He's an incredibly grounded spiritual person.
Yeah, I know. I had to ask because I'm like, to me he felt like that. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I love the validation, like that what I was feeling about Denzel was like he's
Yeah.
the real deal. And I don't
Yeah.
and taking anything aside of what media could be saying about any of these actors, you can tell he's
Yeah.
like really into the craft. And I love that he was collaborative. And it sounds like he's very solution forward, right? Like if there's
Yeah.
something that comes up, then, and I personally, I'm all about like fall in love with the process, come to
Yeah.
solutions. There's always a solution. So I love that he does like the meditation and takes a moment and then comes back with
Yeah.
more ideas to collaborate. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Because he knows what it could be, and he doesn't want to rush through something, realizing that he's not putting the best interests of the project first.
Right.
If something feels like the wrong choice, he's not going to just let it slide.
Yeah.
He's going to say, whoa, hold on, we need to zero in on that, because that could be the linchpin that makes or breaks this film.
Yeah.
And oh God, it really is how if I may, during the strike, which I'm so happy that we're all striking. I'm so for the strike in every single way. I've taken it as an opportunity to really assess how I was conducting myself in the industry and how I was running my own business.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that I want to be more like Denzel in a lot of ways. I don't want to join the clamor of, okay, you need to join the millions of people who are aggressively just making content for content's sake. That's not interesting to me. I want to go to a craft first, collaboration first process of, here's what it is. Trust in the work. Trust that the right people are going to see it. Trust that the message that you're putting out there is powerful in and of itself. Seek out only those messages that are aligned with what it is that you want to do while you're on this planet.
Yeah.
Call it a day.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's the type of work where at the end of the day, you can look at yourself in the mirror and just like, today was a good day.
Yes. And I think, being transparent with everybody, because I try to be intensely authentic. The past year has honestly been hard.
Yeah.
I with my project Night Mother, it just blew up in ways that I was really not anticipating, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
That was like a zero budget project that I did during COVID because I didn't want to lose my creative ability, for lack of a better term, that quickly grew into this international phenomenon, which was not how I set out. I just was like, hey, I've got some friends, Ellen and John, people know who they are. I love them. We've been friends for 10 years. Let's make a thing. And then it turned into a really deeply personal piece. But, from that, I've gotten approached by a lot of people who said like, hey, you did this with your dream. Can you help me with mine?
Yeah.
And I always want to try to be helpful, but I very recently dropped a lot of projects from my roster because it just wasn't aligned. And I realized that it was pulling me from my center of what it is that I ultimately want to say as an artist. So even if I'm doing less, I want the things that I say to have meaning and intention behind them.
Yeah.
It's a funny thing. I think, especially as producers, which is a perspective that I don't think people often hear when they look into the industry. So for any producers listening, I hope that this resonates. But, we can easily get sucked into, oh, let's do that project because it's going to pay me lots of money for X amount of years.
Right.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's awesome that you got into that room, right? Like I'm honored by the rooms that I got let into. But is that really what you want at the end of the day? Is it just money? Yeah. Especially as Americans. I have a friend who's like a little meditation guru on the subject of meditation. Yeah. And he posted something on Facebook. Which I have since deleted my Facebook, and I'm sort of sad that I didn't find a way to continue to follow his content. But he said, what is your ultimate level of success? Like when are you done? Do you have an idea of what enough is for you? Because with how we are as a society, if we don't outline what done is, people will just keep mindlessly achieving for the sake of achieving, because we are an achievement addicted society. And that really like seared into my head. I'm like, wow, I should think about
that's a deep question. Me and I should think about that too.
Right? I know. It's like, oh crap. Yeah. What is enough for me?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that there are so many things where I feel like I've hit that enough, which means everything else is bonus, which means we can take a bit of the pressure off.
Yeah.
And also, working in a way where you feel like you're being pulled from your center into just kind of toxic, money-driven spaces. That's not the vibe. That's not, at least for me, that's not the vibe. That's not how I want to be living. That's not how I want to be creating as an artist. And I am grateful for role models like Denzel, and I wish that we would promote them more. I think that's what future creative generations like Gen Z and the one after Gen Z, have we named them yet?
I don't know.
Question mark.
Is it going to be double A or double Z? I don't know if we're going to call Generation AA. We're going to do Generation AA.
Fascinating conversation. Generation mystery. I wonder, do we have enough of the right role models for them rather than just loud role models? Do we have the right people being like, hey, you might not have 40 million followers. That's okay. Yeah. What are you making? And do you feel like, as you say, it's a reason to get out of bed in the morning?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So a couple of really cool things that popped up. So I love that you talked about the intention behind what it is that you're putting out in the world. Right. And just kind of leading with that, it's going to a lot of what these interviews are about, which is like the intention that's put out there behind it is what is actually resonating for the right people at the right time to come into you. And it's really beautiful when you think of it, because what I'm finding, just being in marketing and digital and talking with people, is that sometimes they don't necessarily know why they're drawn a certain way. They just are. And the commonality between it is usually starting with the intention of the person that's putting out the content or putting out the movie or putting the actor or the singer. And that's what they're feeling. They're almost feeling it and they don't even know what it is. So it's very interesting that you're talking about intention, because I'm like, that's been a little bit of a theme behind some of these interviews, which is really fascinating. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Funny? That is funny. Maybe it's not funny though. Maybe that's why we resonated and decided to do this.
The intention was there.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I hear some folks be like, oh, Zoom isn't the same, or like you can't read vibes over an email. And I'm like, yeah, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, is having a conversation that's emotional over text message wise? No, it's not wise. But can you vibe check somebody online who you don't know in person? 100%. And I think we're on to people who are, for lack of a better term, resonating at the frequency that we want to resonate at. Yeah. And that can be very revealing of how we think of ourselves. You know, if you're following a lot of people for the sake of following the drama, it's something to look at. You know, how do you really see yourself in that? And listen, I frequent some sites myself where I'm like, oh, that's really good anonymous gossip. That's very fun. So I'm not gonna, I'll be the first to out myself, but like normal gossip, great podcast, solid podcast all around. Yeah. But apart from that, I've been like sort of curtailing which accounts I follow so that if I unconsciously open up Instagram, because it's just a rote habit at this point, I immediately am hit with something that makes me feel better rather than something that makes me feel worse. It has really shifted my own resonance throughout my day, to use your own terminology.
I love it. Well, and and I think that people are catching on to things too. You're talking about the influencer who she promoted something that was completely different than what she's about. And so people just pick up on it immediately now. So it's kind of one of these really great unseen lighthouses for ourselves, is that, setting an intention and then moving forward with that intention. And so we kind of find our way.
I mean, I think the term influencer in and of itself is such a weird term because like it's a byproduct, right? Like you don't acting is not a byproduct of what I do. What I do is I act. Yeah. Producing is not a byproduct. I produce. Yeah. But influencing is a byproduct of what actual effective influencing does. I mean, if someone is talking to me about a product multiple times and I just find them to be a really engaging person, I'm going to go interact with that product, but it's not because they talked about the product, right? It's because they do their own thing. And that's why I followed them. Yeah. So what I find is by naming that job the byproduct, we now have this whole slew of people who are actually much like the reality stars of like the early 2000s, not today's reality stars, very different breed. But like Britney Spears era reality stars. Yeah. I see some of them on social media just being loud for the sake of being loud, screaming something for the sake of being heard. Yeah. And that's what you get when you call it an influencer. It's you see people just being like, hey, here I am. And you're like, great, what's the takeaway? Yeah. It's a funny thing. I know some people love the word influence and some people don't. And my company's called Influence, and I see it a little bit differently, and I have to laugh because my daughters are like, "What is it to be an influencer, Mom?" And I'm like, "Well," they're like, "'Cause you're an influencer, right?" I'm like, "Kind of. I'm more of a thought leader, but but here's what I say to them: it's like it's the intention behind influence is really what it is. So if your intention is, and so I always talk about, to everybody and my girls too, I always look for what I call either the double win or the triple win, just depending on who's involved. And so influence is really moving people into the win. So if you have the right intention with influence, it's actually to move the collective parties all involved to a beneficial win. It's the collaboration that Denzel does, right? So he's very influential in what he does because he's looking at it from not the me center, but he's looking at, okay, so I want to win in this and I want everyone else to have a win in it. What is that? And how can I move this forward? And so that's how I see influence done really well. And I like influence a little better than persuasion, because persuasion is like you have to talk people into it. And so influence is more, if you have the right intention behind influence, it can be really, really powerful. Well, you just gave me so many different creative thoughts with that. Wow, you just lit me up. Wow, yeah. Got my brain running in 40 different directions. You make me think of and we did not talk about this before, but there's stuff that I want to be, I'm being really vague about this, but there's stuff that I want to say and that I want to put out there online that I haven't before, but that I am considering because it's something that I've recently become passionate about and that I've learned a lot about. And I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. So I like your framework because it makes it less about, hey, there has to be an objective that is met by the end of this content being posted, and more just like, here it is.
Yeah. Yep. Here it is for your general awareness, and do what you need, do what you want. Yeah. And then they get to kind of, it's so like, influence to me is so subtle. Most of the time it's very subtle. I'm actually pretty subtle with my influence. I'm not loud. Like, I'm actually pretty soft spoken. This is why the microphone's like, basically I'm eating it. No, don't get me wrong. I'm assertive and I go for things too. I do it in a more of a quiet way. And it really doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot of noise. And so when people are trying to be influential by being loud, what's really great is when you can come in a little softer and use that momentum for yourself. And so it doesn't have to be loud. It's really about finding a way to have a win for everybody, but you actually have to be really like unbiased. You have to know yourself really, really well to be able to do that, and to be able to take yourself out of the situation first and foremost and see the win for everybody, and not have that, not have your layer on what's a win for people, not assuming what's a win for people, but really looking and observing. And then, okay, so what am I, and this is why I love that you talked about Denzel this way. And then Denzel can say, but what am I willing to do? And what am I not willing to do? Knowing myself after I know everybody else's win, and then coming to the table with those options so that everybody wins. It's so interesting. And it's very subtle.
Wow.
Yeah, so subtle, right? But it works so well because that's collaboration. And actually that's really disruptive too, because most people are doing the opposite of like, well, I'm just gonna be loud until I get what I want. Well, that's what toddlers do, right? That's what toddlers do. And
it's like social media invasion.
Right.
Like, hi! And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, I look at the Explore page on it. I'm outing myself. I'm not on TikTok. I saw TikTok and was like, that algorithm would ruin me. Have fun, everyone else. Enjoy it. I would never get anything done ever again. But it's made its way slowly over to Instagram, right? So I look at the Explore page and I just see imitations of other people being loud, which is a strange phenomenon to witness. Like, wow, I just feel like I see the same meme like 40 times in a row on those like reels on Instagram. And is it really hitting me? Am I remembering a single one? Or is everyone just kind of yelling and hoping that you catch on to their yell?
Yeah. I like, okay, so there's certain memes that I like, but I like there's a video, and I really like this too. And I actually use it as an experiment, but it's a video of a professional violinist playing in the subways of, I believe it was New York City. And he was just wearing regular clothes, and he was, you have to pay thousands of dollars to get a ticket to his concert. And he was just playing there for free, and people were just passing him by, and he had a little, jar out. People were just throwing a couple bucks in here and there. So that was his take. And then, it was a comparison of like, he did this and everybody walked by him. And the story behind that was like, go to the places where you're most appreciated is basically what it was saying. And so I reposted that on LinkedIn. I'm just like, I really kind of want to see how people are processing this information. And there were two types. I don't know if you could say the two. There were two types. There were people that, and there's nothing wrong with this either. I'm not putting judgment. It's just observation. And I found it really interesting. There were people that were saying, yeah, but that's actually not a good comparison, because he's in a New York subway and people are going somewhere versus people know who he is and they're coming in, because he's known in that particular arena. And so they were kind of picking apart like the experiment that my experiment was running. And then there were other people that just like, that makes so much sense. And so they took that information in, and then they used that to describe their experience with what that was trying to say. So you had people who, like I said, there's nothing wrong with either way because I thought there were good points. It's just two different ways of thinking. And so people are fascinating, by the way, but it's just there's so much it can be done with even like a meme that's thrown around the internet several times. But what I really like it is when somebody takes that meme and then they put you're gonna like this. They put their story and how it resonated with them on top of it, and so that's really powerful.
Like
that's a good way to use
telephone game.
Yeah.
Wow, I really love your mindset with the stuff. It's really fascinating to listen to. I'm so glad you have a podcast.
Well, I get to geek out because we're talking about storytelling. I'm like, oh, good. Now I can like talk about this stuff and not just have like a quick little post on it. But yeah, it's like there's just so content and people are fascinating, and to see, and the best piece about it is that you're actually, when you take that meme and then you post your story at it, you're going to have, people are going to go one way or the other. So it's a disruption where they're either going to resonate or they'll be like, this person's crazy, I'm out of here. And so it can act as a filtering process too, which I love.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is, you've just blown my mind sideways in a lot of different ways, where I'm like, wow, I should have an offline conversation with you about a lot of this stuff. It's so great.
Like my little experiments that I like to run online that nobody knows I'm running on. I'm telling you, like I run little experiments on you people all the time, and I do. Like they have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm just like, I just feel like being my scientist Danielle today, and so let's just see. So scientist. It's a game. Like for me, it's just like, well, I could be, drudging around and like, I got to post today, or I don't know what I'm going to do. Or I could be like, let's just see. I'm just curious to see how people are going to take this. And it's really fun when it's something that could, either people are going to love it or they're going to really, really hate it. And they're really going to hate it. And they're going to like say, you're all these things. And just like, wow, that's fascinating to see that reaction. Oh my goodness. And so that's fun too. Cause I do like to, kind of poke the bear once in a while. Just to see. Wow. That's the Irish. That's the Irish.
Yeah, that is. It's just kind of with people being like, what happens if I do this?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So
yeah, I wish I could, I should make a quick note for everybody listening. I wish I could talk about some of the stuff that I'm building right now, but until this project is done, I can't. But boy, I can't wait to be able to share with all of you guys what's going on right now under the hood. Things are paused right now because I'm getting married in 10 days, but also out of respect for the strike. Yeah. But when things resume, I have a much clearer lens of how I want to approach some specific stories and narratives. And I want to get a little bolder and racier with it.
Yeah.
I think people want that right now. They want that in your face authenticity. They don't want more of the same.
I like it when people are different. Like it's my favorite thing. And just all the people in high school that did their own thing. I'm like, I so appreciate that. Like I had she was a friend and a neighbor, and I'll just never forget this, is that she took jeans, and she was very, very artistic, very creative. And she didn't like the way that they were like a straight leg fit. And so what she did was she slit the sides. And then she created a quilted pattern in between, so they were bell bottoms. So now she liked them, but it was her own like little quilt in between. So, and I just remember, and I'm like, did you? And she made me skirts and stuff too, so it was so much fun. We grew up together, and I just loved how she did. And nobody had jeans like that. Everybody else had, again, I'm aging myself, silver tabs and and the same jeans. And then she comes in, and I'm just like, that's like the best thing ever. And I was one of the few that appreciated it, but I'm like, seriously, like you can't get those jeans anywhere else. That's hers. That's hers. Those are like the best jeans ever. So I always think of her and those jeans whenever I think about who I meet. And I always look for their little thing, their little disruption. Like, what is it that makes you like super unique? Even if you're not trying to tell me or show me, I'm going to find it. So I actually I'll focus in on that first and foremost. And then I feel like I found like a little treasure. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. What a cool superpower.
This is like the first time I've told somebody that I do that. I'm like, I think people probably know because then I'll point it out and I'll just say it and they're like,
they'll be like, you see me?
I had one guy's like, oh, I feel naked right now. And I'm like, I don't have x-ray vision. I'm just like, I'm asking really good questions.
I think you took it to that place. Listen,
yeah, I'm like,
put your clothes back on.
But it's kind of just like seeing right through it. But I'm like, but they'll say certain things and you can hear it in their voice and you can kind of feel it. Just like, ooh, either, oh, actually you hate that or, oh, that actually really interests you. Let me ask some more questions. Let's go down that road. So, people are fascinating.
People are very fascinating. It is true.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, we've been on for a little bit, but I do want to talk about this because before I started getting goosebumps, we were talking about this. So you have a lot of projects. I know you can't talk about all of the ones coming out, so we're going to have you back on when you can talk about it. We'll have you back on. Yeah. But one of the big passion projects is to help with mental health, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mental health. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit about some of your projects revolving around supporting that.
So without like delving into future projects, you literally like, there's something I've been building in my mind that you incubated in this interview. So I'm excited for a follow-up reunion party where I can be like, and it started here, folks. And just talking about POVs and stuff. It was like, bam, okay, everything's coming together. So I find that I don't work on a project unless there's that through line. I just, to be completely frank with listeners, I'm a suicide attempt survivor. So mental health is at the forefront of my own personal journey, but now is deeply enmeshed in a lot of the projects that I'm taking on. There's even a documentary project that I'm looking at right now, and I think mental health is going to just organically come up in it, even though you would not necessarily think that that's one of the topics. I am confused that in a world that is so progressive, where we're already debating the ethics of having AI do our jobs, we have not advanced mental health care really much at all in the past 100 years. I am horrified at the lack of progress in that field. And goodness knows it's not for the lack of research. It's not for the lack of incredibly trained professionals who work every single day doing the really hard thing of caring and treating people and bringing them back to a better than societal baseline. But it's more just like the way we perceive mental health hasn't changed. Yeah. Where, okay, let's say you had a heart attack. Okay, boom, you had a heart attack. Do you go to your dentist? No, that would be weird. Go to your dentist. Like, dentist, I had a heart attack. You'd be like, please leave and go to the hospital.
Yeah.
But we do that for mental health.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of someone in my own life who is dealing with a big trauma and is seeing the equivalent of a dentist for it. And I'm like, you're not going to get the right care for that. It's just opening wounds, and it's not giving you the tools you need to actually treat what happened.
Yeah.
And I find that a lot of where we're at as a society is we're seeing technology in a lot of ways be wielded in ways that harm and aggravate pre-existing problems with mental health. You see some folks say like, oh, mental health is fabricated. Like there wasn't depression or anxiety 50 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, just like everything else, everything's being filmed and documented. So you're just seeing it more. It's not that it didn't exist. It's just actually documented. So I am very interested in always being transparent about my own experience, about my own mental health, so that folks see, your mental health does not define your ability to be successful or really build a dream life for yourself.
Yeah.
I think having mental health that has ups and downs, having really bad mental health days, weeks, months, years, has no bearing on you. And I think there's too many people who are trying to look shiny, shiny, happy, happy all the time. And the result is that people who are struggling feel like, oh, well, I don't look like that. I'm worthless. Like, there's no way that I could ever be that person. To which I'm like, well, I have those thoughts too.
Yeah.
But I was able to do XYZ. And I share that because it's more common than you'd think. You know,
Yeah.
when stars or people that we know of unfortunately commit suicide, the reaction is usually like, wow, I had no idea. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a problem. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like if people close to that person are surprised that that happened,
Yeah.
that is a societal issue.
Yeah.
That means that we, as a society, not individuals in that person's life, but as a society, we let that person down.
Yeah.
Um, and it bums me out. One of my lights just died, as you'll
Yeah.
notice now. We have very dramatic noir lighting, but
Yeah,
that's
that was very dramatic. No, it
we
gets the
started
point
the
across.
transition of mental health is important.
Yeah, well, like half your face went dark. So I mean, it's so interesting that happened.
Well,
I'm like
there it went.
no,
It died. Yeah, it's
it's
got a battery life of 30 minutes because
yeah.
solid light right there.
Well, it's kind of like the dark shadow side of what people like. So when I think of shadow work, it's always the thing that people don't want to look at. That's always there. So
oh God, and it's the stuff that
you see.
We're gonna have an offline conversation about now I have these ideas and I'm like, well, good thing I know someone who's good at this.
Yeah.
Let's shape something and make something. But yeah, I am deeply invested in authentically describing my own journey and telling stories that aren't immediately connected to my own journey, right? But are other people's experiences where we can talk about hard stuff that needs to be talked about, because that's step one to destigmatizing it. But really, like actually destigmatizing it, where we go, oh, hey, healthcare should cover mental health.
Yeah.
Unabashedly. If someone is struggling, they should be able to go seek treatment, and they should not have to wait 6 months for that treatment, and it should be top of the line treatment.
Absolutely. Yeah, it should be. And and I think that people, they're looking at it like it's not normal, but actually it's the norm. Like especially people who are highly creative, or I mean it doesn't even matter if they're creative or if they're very cerebral. I mean, there's still things that they have to process through. And when we're not taught, and you were talking about Ireland, actually, I'll have you mention that after this, but when we're not taught these coping mechanisms for all the things that are coming in, and we have so many externals coming in all at once, but we don't have either we don't have the education, or the coping mechanisms that we have been taught are just not working, or we don't have anyone to talk to. That's when things can slide, because if somebody's feeling like they're in the dark and they're the only one there and they're alone in a room full of people, then that's the really sad thing. So maybe it is time for people to say that, yeah, I go through hard times too.
Yeah.
Or I don't know what to do in this place right here. Who can I reach out to?
Reveal of some stuff that, and this is not like professionally produced content that I am working on that I can't talk about right now. But I actually want to start vocally talking more about things people can do for their holistic mental and physical well-being that literally saved my life. That is a direction that I want to start leaning into on my social media accounts of just like, hey, here's something that is useful that I know works. To your point, since you mentioned Ireland, I will aggressively segue to that. Ireland is doing this cool thing where they are implementing DBT, or dialectical behavioral therapy, in every single elementary school, which means they are raising, I mean, the whole country, just to clarify, they are raising an entire generation of children who will have had advanced therapy and emotional regulation skills. And my mind, like I can't speak when I think about what that's going to do for that country. Imagine when those kids are now in their 20s and 30s, and all of a sudden they're able to like step into their real selves and come into a place where they can enact positive change on the community as a whole. I think, oh God, I am really excited to see what that would look like. I'm really excited to see what that would look like. And I wish that we would do that more across the Western world as a whole. Certainly in America, there's very little of that. And I think it leads to a culture of a lot of people not feeling heard to dangerous degrees. So I get excited when I think about stuff like that.
It's the human condition. We all have this underlying need of wanting to be seen, heard, and appreciated. So those three things are like really big. And I talk about this with my content pieces for my clients. I'm like, listen, this is what people want. Like really deep down underneath all all the shit that's layered on top. This is the human condition. And we want to feel like we're connected, and that connection has to start within, and then it can come outwards with connecting with others. But I love that Ireland's doing this because it's teaching kids how to come within, because that's going to be a really connected country. Like the people in it are going to be highly connected to each other. And I mean, there's just bigger wins. We'll bring it back to Denzel. He brings it back to that's where the wins and the collaboration happen. That's where like innovation can really take off.
Ooh, wow. What a wonderful finishing point. Innovation.
I'm seeing Pixar like right up here now, right?
I know. I'm like, damn, I could have said that better myself. Jeez, mic drop.
Aw, thanks. I know. I need an actual mic. Well, there, I can't drop this, but I'll just wait.
And she rips off her headset and flings it to the floor.
And she tries to pick it up to finish the podcast, and it doesn't sound right.
I would love to see that once in my life. I would probably fall off my seat laughing. I
could probably do it. I've got another headset here that doesn't work anymore, so I'll just have to do like a pretend one and videotape it and send it to you. Like, here you go.
Please do. Please post it. Please make it a GIF. We will all eat it up. This has been so great. Really. This doesn't even feel like an interview. It just feels like we're just discussing and brain waving and talking about what story is and what people connect to and how we can use that knowledge. And it gets me so excited, truly.
Yeah. Oh, well, congratulations to you and your future husband. We're so excited for you. All of us are so excited. By the time this goes out, I know you're going to be married, so I'll just be saying you're a Mrs. Yay!
Yay! I'm jealous of future Sheila, who is existing in the timeline where this is released.
Yeah. But you've got your fun day. It's going to be so fun. Oh my gosh. And you get are you taking at least a couple week off maybe? I know you're super busy. Yeah.
Yeah, I am. There's time. There's time. There will be time to be lying down. I always plug in lie down time because that's self-care, folks.
Good. Well, we so appreciate you coming on here and sharing your brilliance and your authenticity. Oh my goodness. So I love how everything lines up, and I really appreciate you talking about the mental health piece and sharing that piece of yourself, because it's just so needed. It's so needed. People need the permission, and thank you for giving that to others to seek out support.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited to talk with you further sometime, and it was such a pleasure to get to talk and speak with you, and knowing that hopefully maybe somebody listening resonates, right? It's all about that resonance, as you say. So I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, everyone, we will be back again with another episode. Thank you so much, Sheila. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Minds of the Mighty podcast with the incredible Sheila Houlahan. We are so glad that you guys came and joined us and listened in. And if you guys want to learn more about what Sheila is up to, you can go to the show notes page, and that is on bit.ly/MOTM-Sheila. Again, that's bit.ly/MOTM-Sheila. And we will be back next week with another incredible episode here on Minds of the Mighty podcast. Bye for now.